Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will study the difference of interpretation in the relationship in the oaths, specifically the Muqsam Bihi of Surah Adiyaat and the Muqsam Alayh. I'm just going to explain these terms between two of the most outstanding proponents of the Farai school, Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi and Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi. Both, of course, subscribe to the same principles as far as interpreting the oaths of the Quran are concerned, and of course that principle was enumerated by Ustaz Hamiduddin Farahi almost a century ago when he, in his Aqsam al-Quran, which is of course work in Arabic, he authored and is also available in the English and the Urdu languages as translations. He actually proved from the usage of these oaths in ancient Arabic literature that basically that the oaths which are found in the Quran, most of the oaths, they are not meant to glorify something, or they are not meant to emphasize a claim, because these oaths are sworn by some objects which have glory or which have a lot of veneration. On the other hand, he proved and he actually explained how in ancient Arabic literature such oaths occur to bear witness to a certain premise. So as far as the component of an oath is concerned, when it is sworn by something, it actually means that that thing is called into witness. So the things which are called to witness, they are called Muqsam Bihi. And the premise on which this witness is called Muqsam Alayh. So therefore, if it is said that such and such thing bears witness to such and such a thing, in other words, it would mean that those things are Muqsam Bihi, and the premise on which those things bear witness is Muqsam Alayh. So this is how we explain these terms. As far as the Muqsam Bihi and Muqsam Alayh are concerned, both authors, both scholars do not differ, and both think that as far as the oaths are concerned, the Muqsam Bihi is concerned, and the Muqsam Alayh is concerned. In Surah Adiyaat, I'm just going to read these verses before you to make it more easy for you to understand. But as far as the relationship between the Muqsam Bihi and Muqsam Alayh is concerned, it is here that they two differ. And as I said, this is an object lesson to learn as well, that in spite of two scholars following the same principles, they can still differ in their application. And of course, it's left to the readers and people who analyze these works to judge for themselves that who has actually who is more closer to the text and has been more faithful and also shown the correct relationship as far as the Muqsam Bihi and Muqsam Alayh are concerned. So I'll start off with explaining how Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi has actually put forth his explanation and his interpretation, and then I'll put forth Ustaz Ghamidi's interpretation as well. At the outset, also let me clarify that if I go through Ustaz Hamiduddin Farahi's notes, which are the Taliqat published in the Arabic language, of course he has not written a tafsir of Surah Adiyaat, but we find his notes available, very brief notes on Surah Adiyaat, and they have been compiled and also published. So if we look at these notes, we find that he has actually briefly said the same thing what Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi has said, and it seems that the two have the same opinion, and of course I'm just going to explain that opinion to you. So let me first read out Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi's translation, which of course is a translation of his actual Urdu work, before you, so that you can have an idea of what actually is under discussion. So first the text, I'll just read the first 6 verses of Surah Adiyaat, which is the 100th surah of the Quran. It has actually 11 verses, but I'm just going to read out the first 6 verses because it is here that this interpretive difference of opinion exists. As far as the rest of the surah is concerned, they have virtually no difference. So the Arabic text is وَالْعَادِيَاتِ زَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَّطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ وَإِنَّهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ لَشَهِيدٌ. That's of course the 7th verse. So translation of this is, remember that these words, Adiyat, Muriyat, Mughirat, they are attributes of horses, and especially war horses, who of course attack the enemy and plunder and loot the enemy. This is something which is common between both scholars. They say that as far as these attributes are concerned, there is absolutely no difference, that they actually refer to horses, which actually portray this whole picture portrays an attack on the enemy, and especially at night. So this is something which I'd like to just translate before you. So the translation would be: panting, galloping horses, producing fire by thumping their hooves, launching assaults at dawn, generating dust from their dash, and barging into a throng with the dust, bear witness that man is very ungrateful to his Lord. So if we go into the explanation part of Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi, and of course the tafsir part, which comes later than this translation, he stresses that the relationship between the Muqsim Bihi and the Muqsim Alayh is that the horses, the faithfulness of the horses, the sincerity of the horses, the obedience of the horses is presented as a witness to the fact that man living in Arabia of those times is ungrateful to his Lord. And the point that he makes is that this whole picture in which the enemy attack is actually portrayed tells us that just at the behest of a single word of a person, the horses attack the enemy. They obey him without any hesitation. And this shows that something which man every day witnesses, that he has someone who is obedient to him. How evil does it reflect that he himself is ungrateful to his Lord? So the Muqsim Bihi, as I said, are these first 5 verses in which we find the horses and the plunder and the loot and the attack which they launch is portrayed. And the 6th verse, which says Innal insana li rabbihi lakanud, is the Muqsim Alayh, which means the premise on which this witness or this evidence is culled out, is invoked. So in Ustaz Amin Ahsan Islahi's opinion, basically it is the obedience and the sincerity of the horses which is portrayed in this enemy attack that shows or reflects that people in those times of Arabia should also realize that if not anything, then they should just look at their horses, how obedient they are to their master. So why is it that these people are not obedient to their master, which is God? So in fact, it is the obedience of the horses, their faithfulness, their commitment to their master, which is presented as proof and shown that look that how ungrateful these people are. So basically it is the obedience of the horses and the Muqsim Alayh and the Muqsim Bihi, therefore in his opinion are very, very closely and very, very coherently related. On the other hand, Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi also, although again the attributes, all these attributes, Adiyat, Muriyat, Mughirat, in his opinion also refer to horses, and of course he also says that basically it is this, they portray an enemy attack, the enemy assault which is launched, and how these horses actually play their part in such an assault, and especially in those times in Arabia. But he says that here it is not the obedience of the horses which is presented in evidence to the fact that man is ungrateful. But before I explain this, I would like to just read out the translation of his translation. And again, the first, the Arabic words are وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ كَدْحًا فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَّطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. So these are the 5 verses which are the Muqsim Bihi, also the same in the case of Ustaz Islahi and Farahi. And the Muqsim Alayhi is Innal insana li rabbihi lakanud. So his translation is: gasping, galloping horses bear witness, then striking fire with their hooves, then raiding at dawn, then blazing a trail of dust in it, and with it penetrating into a throng, that this man living in the peaceful surroundings of the Baytullah is very ungrateful to his Lord. So Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi, contrary to what Ustaz Islahi and Ustaz Farahi have put forth, that the obedience of the horses is something which is called as witness. On the other hand, he says that basically it is the Quraysh who are being told that as the custodians of the Baytullah, that is precisely why he is translated the Muqsamala as that this man living in the peaceful surroundings of the Baytullah, he is showing this ingratitude. And the point that he is making is that in those times, the only tribe which was immune from an enemy attack were the Quraysh. And because of the fact they were the custodians of the Baytullah, they were given this special status that all other tribes would be attacked, they would be assaulted, and all kinds of loot and plunder would go on. But not in the case of the Quraysh, because of their special status as the custodians and keepers of the house of God. So Ustaz Ghamidi is saying that this whole scene being created by the horses, it's not that the horses are being presented as evidence, it is in fact this whole plunder and loot, which of course occurs through horses, is presented and told that look, that it is only the Quraysh who are immune from this attack, and therefore they, if not anything, should at least realize that being the custodians of the Baytullah, they are immune from this attack and no one can attack them. And if I use technical language, I can say that in the words of Ustaz Ghamidi, Innal insana li rabbihi lakanud, the word al-insan actually refers to the Quraysh, and they are being told here that because of the fact that you are the custodians of the Baytullah and you are living in this Baytullah, in these peaceful surroundings, and because of the fact that you are the custodian of the Baytullah, no one attacks you, so at least you should realize that this plunder and this loot which goes on everywhere in Arabia unchecked is something which does not go on for them. They are immune from it, they are given this immunity, they are given this protection. So you see, this difference of opinion can now be gauged. As far as the reasoning is concerned, I've just put forth. In the first case, Ustaz Islahi is presented the horses being someone whose obedience is presented as witness, and they are told that because of the fact that this obedience is shown by them to their masters, people living in Arabia should realize this as well. So in his case, the Muqsamala has a more general sort of an appeal, in which of course it's not the Quraysh which are invoked, it is the people who live in Arabia. They are told that look how whenever this plunder and loot and this assault takes place, how horses are so faithful and obedient to their masters. But in the case of Ustaz Ghamidi, it's not the obedience of the horses, it's actually the whole scenario of this plunder and loot and assault which went on in Arabia unchecked for everyone except for the Quraysh. And it is they are told that it is them that they are told that they said that in spite of this, they don't realize and they show this ingratitude. So this ungratefulness, this thanklessness is highlighted on the part of the Quraysh. And they are told that in spite of enjoying these favors, they are showing this ingratitude. And of course, if we study one of the later surahs of the Quran, which just occurs about 4 or 5 surahs down, is Surah Quraysh, in which precisely the same thing has been unfolded, that because of the fact that they are the custodians of the Baytullah, they are given this special privilege that their caravans are not attacked. So Ustaz Ghamidi actually seems to relate his presentation to the fact that it is the Quraysh who are addressed here, it's not the general Arab scenario, and it is the plunder and the loot which went on, but which did not go on for the Quraysh, which is presented here. So you can clearly see that this subtle difference between the two scholars does exist. However, as you can see, as far as the Muqsim Bihi and the Muqsamala are concerned, both are the same, but the connection and the way they are related to one another is very different in the case of both scholars. I would urge you to pick up the original works of both these scholars and study in detail, especially those who are advanced students of the Quran, in order to study how these two gentlemen have differed and how these scholars have a different approach, in spite of the fact that they follow exactly the same principle, which was, as I said earlier on, enumerated by Ustaz Hamiduddin Farahi when he actually described that oaths in the Quran, they are not meant to emphasize a statement through reverential statement, through a reverential claim that is generally understood. But on the other hand, these oaths which are mentioned in the Quran, they are meant to bear witness to a certain premise. So that premise is called a muqsam alayh, and the thing which are called to bear witness on that premise, all those entities, they are called the muqsam bihi. So the components of the oath, as explained by Ustaz Farahi, they are of course the same, and both scholars, Ustaz Ghamidi and Ustaz Islahi, acknowledge this. But when they apply the same principle, linguistic considerations take them to different interpretations, and it is here that we need to understand that it is that in spite of the same principle, when we reflect as human beings, we might reach different conclusions, and as far as the one which considers itself to be the correct one is concerned, it all depends on how linguistically appropriate you think a certain interpretation to. And this is how we also approach our own studies, that we study different scholars, we study their line of reasoning, and then make up our own mind as to which of these two lines or three lines are more appropriate as far as our own understanding of the Quran is concerned. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.